Hey Acers, welcome to Situational Rules number 3. Not 3, 4. 4. We're 4 into this now. Can you believe it? But anyway, this is the official channel for the Ace Role Playing Games Club. I'm your host, Mason Emerson, and I am glad to be sharing some time here with you to talk more about situational rules for Savage Worlds. Now, the rules we're up to now are mounted combat, and I'm going to go ahead and continue to do like I did last video and talk about places where you might use these rules. So, for example, you might be fighting from horseback or some other strange beast, like if we're doing a Star Wars game, we could do something like what my uncle suggested and ride Rancors. Has that been done in a Star Wars film or TV product? Maybe. But my uncle suggested it in his book, The Courtship of Princess Leia, which was back in like 94, I think, or 93. So it's been a while since that came out. And he even also suggested the Force Witches. So, those are a couple of things that my late uncle Dave Wolverton created, and he did a great job at those. And I do miss him. He was one of my inspirations for wanting to tell stories, but unfortunately, I can't write like he could. So I help make role-playing games instead. So anyway, another place where I would use the mounted combat rules would be with the with riding, like say you're on a motorcycle or something like that. So those are kind of some places where I would use it. Now, the main thing, excuse me, one of the main things that you got to remember is, first of all, as a game master, don't deal the horse or the creature, the mount, an action card. And if you're wanting to fight from horseback, it's either going to be your fighting or your riding skill that you're going to make the roll with. So that the player's going to make the roll with. So they have to determine whether it's their fighting skill or their riding skill, because they're kind of trying to do both at the same time. If they get shaken, stunned, or wounded while mounted, or the mount is incapacitated, that is a immediate riding roll. It's not counted as an action in the sense of the turns, and the rider falls if any of those things happen, if they fail the riding roll. And if the mount was running, the rider suffers 2d4 damage or 2d6 damage with a critical fail. And so the missed ranged attacks, mounts and riders are affected by innocent bystander rules, which we've covered before. And if the shot intended at the rider rolls a 1, it hits the horse instead. So that's to be aware of. And a wounded mount, or when the animal is shaken or wounded, it rears or bucks, and the rider has to make a riding roll to stay mounted, or it falls as listed above. So let's take a scenario where we got a brave Indian warrior, in American Indian, obviously, or it could be an Indian because they use mounted cavalry as well. But let's just say we got a brave, semi-technological mounted warrior with a spear. That could be a knight too, but in this case, we're going lighter armor. So riding along, and they got a spear in their hand, and they're going to attack somebody as they're riding their horse. Say we've got a fighting that is a D, let's say D6. They're not very good yet, but their riding's D8. They will use that D6 as their attack stat for this turn. Then, after that, let's say somebody takes aim at them with a bow and lets that arrow fly, and it flies, but they rolled a 1. So now they're going to hit the horse, and it's going to do the damage of the arrow to the horse, not the rider. let's say the horse takes an injury, because the horse is not a wild card, unless it is. Animals can be wild cards, but in this case, let's say the horse isn't. It takes shaken with a wound, so that horse just went incapacitated, and so it's going to fall. And now that it's shaken and wounded, and it's incapacitated, the rider has to make a riding roll. And let's say he fails, he's going to fall off and take 2d4 damage. So that's kind of the idea that we're after. So let's continue on and talk a little bit further of kind of a subclass of this, and that is charging. So I'm going to turn around. Say you shook my horse. Let's say you shook my horse, and I was riding at you. You shook my horse because you got to shoot first, and I'm now pulling back, and I've got my horse back under control, and I'm gonna get even with you for that. So I'm gonna ride at you, and I've got my spear up ready to just throw it in, and I'm going to get to add +4 to my damage roll with a successful fighting attack. So, and the rule is 6 inches or more, but I like to say that this would be, because you're on a horse, there's just scale it in your mind as the game master, so that you have near, and so there's melee, short, medium, and long. I kind of steal that idea from Index Card RPG, which is a great game also for starting. And this is not necessarily about Index Card RPG, because obviously the title says Savage Worlds, wherever that is. And I just wanted to plug that, though, because it really is a good... Index Card RPG is really a good... Excuse me. It's really a good system, and I like the way that they handle distance. Because if you're doing the 6 inches, that's a Savage Worlds thing when you're on maps and minis. But most of the time, you got to try and figure out, instead of trying to do all the math of, well, let's see, it's 3 yards per inch, and then a yard is 3 feet, and no, just instead of trying to figure all that out, as a game master, one of my suggestions is go ahead and take that page from Index Card RPG, and take pages from any RPG that helps you to better entertain your players and help them to entertain you. So that's one of the big things, big things I suggest, is if you have a good technique that comes from another game, use it. Don't put it aside just because you're trying to only do Savage Worlds. No. I love this system. I love lots of systems. And like I said, Index Card has a really cool way of doing that. So, so that's what you get to do then, is if you are at like extra long range, or long range, or even medium range, you have enough space to charge. But if you're at close range, you don't have enough space to charge, so you don't get the bonus. And so if I'm charging you, and I'm just going to try and run you through my spear, I'm going to be trying to wheel around at a longer range so I can build up some momentum. Now, if you have something with a reach of 1 or greater, you can bring up that pole and set against against a charging attack. And you have to be on hold, and when the opposed athletics roll, to interrupt as usual. And whoever has the most reach adds +2 to the roll. So that means the lance that the knight has could be reaching them as well. The winner attacks first, and if successful, they add the +4 charge bonus to their damage, whether they're the rider or not. So that would represent the horse coming in, and you pull up that pole at the last second, and I run smack into it, and it does incapacitate my horse this time, and it might even get me. So that's mounted combat in the rules of the book. So let's talk about the next part, and that's one of my favorite ones, and that's multi-actions. This is something you need to do against your players if they're not doing it already against you. And try to do it against the players, because I just watched a really good video um, from a YouTuber I subscribe to named Jenny D. She's awesome. Really she's sweet and cute, and I want to fold her up and put her in my pocket for bad days. I like her. So anyway, um, Jenny, she pointed out that part of being a game master is action economy. And so I won't take away much from her video, because you got to just go watch it. I will hunt it down and find the link, and I'll put it in the description below, because it's worth watching. And actually, going back to the index card RPG thing, that's where there's a good video that talks about some good techniques that you learn from game mastering from other role playing games, and that is by my friend Dave Thamaver. And I hope I said your last name right there, Dave. But yeah, but my friend Dave, who wrote Fluxfall Horizon, he talks in there about 3 books that really inspired him: Index Card RPG, also one called Into the Bastion Land, or Into the Electric Bastion, or Electric Bastion Land. That's what it is, and it's part of the Into the Odd series that's put out by Free League Press. And then there's also Night's Dark Agents, I think is what it's called, or Night's. But anyway, yeah, I've got it over here. It's actually sitting in my thing. I'm going to pick it up as soon as Night's Black Agents, and that's a cool looking game about being spies hunting vampires that are in a conspiracy, and they're cool looking. But the GMing sections in those, Dave highlights some really cool stuff in his video, and I'll link that below as well. So let's talk multi-actions. This is something that I really like. The Savage Worlds was probably one of the first ones to do it. I don't know if they were the very first one, but they were the first one that I ever saw that did it. And we're talking about how the characters can do up to 3 actions per turn. So the first action has no penalty. It's just there. You roll flat, unless there's other penalties involved and things like that. So if I'm just taking a shot at short range with a handgun, boom, there's no penalty to that. However, if I want to try and shoot 2 guys, that's going to be 2 actions. Boom, boom. But being as and this makes logical sense in the real world, because if you're moving that gun, you might not be as accurate as if you just held it still. So, boom, boom, there's 2 actions. Each of those attacks gets a -2. And if you do 3 actions, boom, 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 each of those actions gets a -4. So technically you've already failed unless you roll really well. However, what they need to understand is that with each of those actions being a -4, they still can very much succeed, even on a D4. Even on a D4 with an additional -2. But they need to announce that they're going to do a multi-action at the before they actually take their attack. They can't shoot and do really well and get lots of raises and everything, and then say, "Oh yeah, I want to make that a multi-action." Nope, they have to do it. They have to declare it. So there can be up to a -4 penalty, but that's if you're taking 3 actions. And the wild card characters get their wild die on each action. So there's that second chance of getting the success. And even if a later action doesn't happen because it was dependent on the success of the first one, it still has the -4 penalty. So if I was going to shoot twice at one opponent, and I get all the raises, and I actually incapacitate them on the first shot, there's still that -4 penalty. I won't, or -2 penalty if I'm doing a double tap or something like that. So this is where this is another thing that Savage Worlds does right. Movement and actions. If I move a short distance, fire my gun, and move again, that's still a 0. There's no modifier from that movement. If I shoot, if I declare a multi-action and decide to do 3, I shoot, I move, I shoot, I move, I shoot. That's still -4 to each one of the shots. But the movement does no penalty. Also, multi-action penalties do not apply to free actions, and and those free actions never inflict a multi-action penalty. So, let's say I am going to do the move, shoot, move, or shoot, move, shoot, move. The one I just described. So I'm going to start the turn. I got one enemy over here, and there's one over there behind a half wall that if I move just a short distance, then I can get a shot on him. And then there's a third one over there. So I shoot this one here. Boom. I roll an 8. So I hit with a 4. I roll my damage and all that kind of stuff. I move the short distance. Now the second shot is in the open. I fire. Boom. But I only roll a 4. So my -4 makes it a 0. So then I move again. The rest of my second part of my short, because you can move up to a long move in a turn without any penalty. And as I make that second part of the move, I get to the third target, I fire, and I get a 16. So I got to hit with the raise. With 2 raises, actually. So I get a 12. Let's say I get a 12 and I get a hit with a raise. So what I just did there, each one of those shots cost me was a -4 in shooting. But I ended up boom, 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 being able to move like the cool cinematic hero that I am in this game. Now, one more thing. And it'll come up in running, but if you run, so if you just move a long move and you move even further, like a second long move, that's when you are going to have a penalty for your movement. But we'll get to that when we talk about running. So let's move on to natural weapons. Natural weapons are things like creatures, or so you might be a creature with horns or claws or fangs, and you can use them with your fighting skill. If you're playing a vampire, you have the fangs, you can use your fangs as a natural weapon. But as a game master, I'd rule, if you're playing a vampire type game and your players are vampires, they still have to have grappled or something to be able to use their fangs. They don't just jump into attacks going, So, you have to use their fighting skill, and the damage depends on the race and their natural strengths and stuff like that. Creatures with natural weapons are always considered armed. So that means they don't get the unarmed offender penalty. And if you're fighting with 2 weapons, you don't get an advantage against them. So a bite. Oh, yep, there it is. Right there. So bite. Count Dracula has come in. And here's a funny thing. You want to talk accent thing for a moment. This is a game mastering thing. And we'll end with natural weapons because I realize the video's gone on long enough anyway. But anyway, but Bela Lugosi, who played Count Dracula in the old movies, and he's the one that gives the accent that he's blah. That one. That is actually a Transylvanian accent. And I can't really do it correctly or do it justice, but he does the very good Transylvanian accent, and he is able to be the vampire. Aha! So, if I am to bite, I have to be grappled with the target. So, I come in, I seduce the lady. I use, instead of maybe Instead of using my fighting, I use my persuasion. And maybe I have a power to help me look into her eyes. And I grab her ever so gently. And I reach up and I bite her on the neck. And I do 2d4 damage. And most attackers can only crush their prey if you look back at grappling. But maybe I'm a werewolf and I have claws. Rah! And I'm jumping in. Rah! And so I get to do extra damage with my swiping claws. Or I also get to a +2 to my athletics or climbing rolls on any rough or soft surface. So I can't do it on glass or steel, but I can, like a brick wall, I get a +2 on that. Now, if I have horns, if I run or move with a successful speed and I hit with my horns, I get to do +4 extra damage. Now, having been somebody who's been attacked by a goat before, when I was a kid, I got pinned in a corner and the goat was a mean cuss. He just started ramming me right in the chest. That hurts. That really hurts. So I can see why we would have +4 damage on the horns. So next time we're going to pick up with non-lethal damage. I'll try and give some scenarios in which you might use those. And I hope that each of these scenarios, these ideas that I'm giving you, are helpful. And like I said, I'll link Dave and I'll link Dave down below and Jenny D, because those two videos are excellent. And even though Jenny is definitely still on board the D&D wagon, which is okay. Hey, we all like our games, and a lot of people really like D&D. However, I applaud you for being here, because this will do so much more than D&D can ever do. And it's not run by a company of corrupt people. I have to say that of all the people I've dealt with in my years being in and out and touching the role-playing game industry, the Pinnacle Entertainment Group people are the best people I have ever dealt with. And I love them. I'm so glad that I get to be even peripherally involved with them. So Shane, Clint, Jody, and all my other friends that work there, and all my other friends that have been in this community with me. This is, again, the best part about Savage Worlds, is the great community. And you guys are building that. You guys are being a part of that. You guys are helping to grow the players and game masters of Savage Worlds so that we can get more people saying, that game is more fun than some of the other stuff I've played. I've run Harvey's Heroes multiple times, and I still keep getting told, bring it back again next year. We'll get more people. And it's fun, just as much fun every single year. So keep it up. Keep learning. Read your books ahead of me. Give me your thoughts on my scenarios that I give, because sometimes they're pretty lame. So give me some better ones. And I would love to keep this conversation going with you. So my email address will also be in the notes down below. And let's get your club set up. Let's get your gaming going. And let's game for good. If no one's told you this today, though, I love you. You are amazing. The world is a better place because you're in it. Keep coming. Talk to you soon.